Hello. It's chronically ill. Chronic. How about that for an intro? Oh boy. Okay. Um. So it's me, as always, and I want to jump right into the video today, uh, of me reading the thing because it's a little bit longer today. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Hope you enjoy. I tried to gather up the courage to call him, but I just couldn't do it. And one day, almost without realizing it, I found that I was driving towards his address. I parked outside his house and walked up the walkway to his front door. His yard was well maintained. I guess I had thought he would be the kind of person who would let his own lawn get bad and overgrown, not well manicured. I tripped on something and saw it was a skateboard. My father had a skateboard? I was just about to knock when a teenager opened the door and blew past me, almost knocking me down. "You can't tell me what to do," he yelled at someone inside. "I can when you live in my house," a deep voice called from within. "Then maybe I don't want to live in your house." And with that, the kid kicked up his skateboard and walked off. The door was still open, so I didn't really know what to do. Walking in would probably be a faux pas. "Can I help you? We aren't interested in buying anything or converting to any religion." A voice came from inside, the same voice as before. I wanted to answer, "And what about being a father?" but I held off on that. "Are you Arnold Rose?" "Yeah, who are you?" He walked out into the light. He was my same height. Was that your son?" I asked, looking after the kid skateboarding away. "Yeah, sorry you had to see that. Now, who are you and what do you want?" Do you recognize me?" I asked. He glanced at me with squinted eyes. "Nope, not at all." "Look, are you going to tell me who you are or not?" I'm your son." The color seemed to drain from his face. My wife found your information, and I'm a dad now? You're a grandfather." "Well, this is awkward," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know what to say." "How do I be a dad?" I asked, jumping straight into the question that I had been wondering. He let out a snort. "You think I would know how to be a dad? I left you and your mother when you were 9. "Arnold, who are you talking to?" a woman's voice called from inside. "Look, now's not the right time to do this. How about we set up a time some other time, where we can sit down and talk?" "Oh, okay, how about tonight around 6 at my house?" "Sure, yeah, sure, works for me. I gotta go." I gave him my address, and with that, he shut the door. When I finally got home, I found my mom packing. "What's going on?" I asked, with desperation and terror interlacing my voice. She answered, "John, I'm heading out of town this weekend." "But what about Cynthia?" I asked. "You'll take care of her." I looked at Cynthia, and she looked up at me. I don't know if I'm just projecting here, but I swear both of us looked like deer in the headlights. To my shame, I still hadn't held her. Every time I tried to work up the courage, a crippling fear of being inadequate overtook me, and so I never picked her up. I'll take care of her? Come on, John, you can do this. All I've been able to do is change her diapers." "Well, what can I say?" She put a hand on my cheek and gave me 2 soft slaps, whispering, "Deep end. You got this." When she finally left, I started really feeling the terror. "Well, I guess it's just you and me," I said to Cynthia. She just stared at me, probably judgmentally. I went to the calendar to see when the last time she'd been fed. One of the things my mom had set up was a whiteboard calendar that split up each day into morning, afternoon, and evening. Cynthia was last fed a few hours ago, so she was up for another feeding now. When I gave her the bottle, I sat her up in the carriage and put my arm behind her back to help her stay sitting up. I was comfortable with this. I mean, not physically comfortable, but what can I say? I looked down at her sucking on the bottle, and I noticed that she was a little red. Once she was done, I put my hand on her forehead, and it seemed like she was a little hot. But that might have just been my hot hands, I'm not sure. I looked at the clock, which read 4 p.m., 2 hours until my father arrived. I walked her around the house in her carriage. An hour later, I checked her forehead again. It definitely seemed like she was warmer, but I wasn't sure about that. And then I remembered the thermometer Claire and I kept in the bathroom and rushed to grab it. This would help me get a baseline. 99.5 degrees. That's concerning. I searched Google to find out at what temperature should you bring up your baby in. Then Cynthia started crying, and it wasn't her usual crying that I had heard up until this point. It was a completely different kind of crying. 30 minutes later, her temperature was 100 degrees. It was rising. I started pacing around. I was supposed to bring her in if her temperature rose above 102 degrees or if she seemed sick. She was crying, so do I bring her in now or not? I wondered. 15 minutes later, her temperature was up to 100.5 degrees. Cynthia was screaming at this point. I looked at the clock. My dad was supposed to be here any minute. But she was in pain. My daughter was in pain. My daughter could die. I don't want her to die. I didn't want her to die. But my dad could tell me what it means to be a dad, why he left me, why he abandoned me. But what could he tell me about being a dad? Closure wouldn't bring back Claire. Love her with all your heart. Claire's final words. My heart had been broken in two, and I was so scared that I would lose Cynthia too. So I fought the fear of inadequacy, and I picked her up from the baby carriage. She felt too hot against me, but it also felt right to hold her. I ripped open the door to see my father's knuckle about to knock on my door. You have to get us to the hospital, I demanded. He froze for a second before running to his car. I got in the car and just held her to me because my father didn't have a car seat. I called my mom on her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Cynthia's temperature is 100.5 degrees. Dad and I are taking her to the hospital now. I remember car horns honking at us the whole way to the hospital, but that was the only thing I noticed. I thought about how she had felt against me, how she feels against me. The tension I had been holding since Claire died seemed to let go when I held her. I held my daughter for the first time in 4 months, and I know I should have felt shame, but that didn't help either of us. That didn't help either of us then. That is part of what it means to be a dad, overcoming your own fears and doing what is best for them. Have I been inadequate for the past 4 months? Probably. But I have the rest of her life to do better, to be better. She was so hot, and she seemed to be slipping in and out of consciousness. I just looked at her beautiful face, so red. I saw Claire in her eyes, in her nose. I couldn't lose her too. I just couldn't. A tear finally escaped my eyes, the first tear since Claire died. The tears flowed freely after that. I put her up to my mouth and whispered in her ear how much I loved her, how much I missed her mother, how glad I was that she was with me now. So please just stay strong and stay alive. I repeated it into her ear, a mantra so that she might live. By the time we had pulled up to the hospital, we were both covered in tears and snot. My dad ripped open the car door and grabbed Cynthia from my arms. I've got her. You come on your own time. I got out and rushed after him, the ground unsteady beneath my feet. A few hours later, we were standing outside the nursery, looking in on Cynthia. She was sleeping, and the doctors were certain she'll pull through. My mom was rubbing my back. She arrived an hour after we got here, panic in her voice as She screamed for me. I rushed to her and told her everything was going to be okay. Could you give us a minute? My dad asks her quietly. Mom turned her up her nose and walked off. They still don't like each other, but they were together during this one day for me and Cynthia. You asked me what it means to be a dad. Well, I've been thinking about that all day. He let out a sigh and looked up, as if trying to collect his thoughts like butterflies from air. It means not being what I've been. I'm a father right now, but I'm not a dad. A dad is someone who sacrifices and overcomes his fears to do what is right for his child. My advice is to be what I have never been. Be the man who I saw tonight, who saw his child in need and did what was comfortable, terrifying. Be you, John. That's all you will have to be. Just be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. So I should probably go. I don't think your mom likes me being here. Will you come back? I asked, leaving unsaid the question of if he will abandon me again. I will. I've got a granddaughter now, he said, shaking his head unbelieving. I will come back for both of you, because I might have messed up being a dad to you, but I hope I can make amends with you and Cynthia. I have to be a better dad to my other son. Yeah, you have to introduce me to him. One thing at a time. He's kind of an asshole. Isn't that the nature of all teenagers? I wouldn't really know, but I have heard that to be the case. I have to get going. He started to leave before I called out, Hey, Dad. You already started making amends by helping me get here. Thank you, he said, his voice catching. That means so much to me. Well, that's the last time I'm leaving you home with the baby, my mom said after Dad had left. I chuckled. Yeah, well, maybe you can go out of town every now and then when you want. I think we'll be fine now. I will still need your help. I'm not changing any more Niagara Falls diapers. I don't blame you. I looked into the nursery at my beautiful daughter. Whoever she decided to be, whoever she really is, I will love her. I still love my wife. But I have a beautiful daughter who needs me to take care of her. I guess there have been only two loves in my life, and that has made all the difference in the world. So this was my first draft. I haven't touched it since I wrote it. Uh, There were quite a few spelling errors. There were quite a few times, especially during the emotional part near the climax of the story, where he doesn't want to lose his daughter. Where I, for some reason, switched into present tense. So reading that's why I stumbled at random points during that, because I was having to transpose the verbs, because I kept apparently going into present tense and then switching back to past tense when I remembered, and then back to present tense. So that's something that I find happens with a lot of my writing, where it switches at some point. Kind of lets me know what tense it ultimately has to be in. So I'll go into more detail at a future date of my writing process and writing tips if anyone is interested in that. Yep. Great. And also, if you're interested in what's happening with the house, tomorrow, I guess on Thursday, I have a home inspector coming in, or going there, and I'm gonna meet him there. We're all gonna meet him there, my parents and I, and realtor, and we're gonna talk to him and see how the home inspection went. They're gonna look for terracotta pipes to see if there's terracotta pipes in the thing, so that we'll know for the future, because apparently tree roots can basically break through terracotta pipes really simply, and I honestly had absolutely no idea about that. So all of this, have no idea what's going on. I'm sort of the last one to understand what's going on. So that's what's going on with the house. I will make sure to take videos and stuff, and it will be on Friday probably, where you'll see the house and stuff. I look forward to sharing it with you. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. But only if you like to. You don't have to otherwise.